This is the 43rd Sabbath on our trek to 49. Seems like we just got started a couple of weeks ago. And today well, let me read from John's Gospel to get us launched. John's Gospel, chapter 16, to get us going here today. This is just one verse for the time being. Jesus is preaching about the Holy Ghost and about the coming of the Holy Ghost, the power of righteousness and judgment. And he says to the disciples, he says, I have yet many things to say unto you, but you cannot bear them now. We know that this verse is simply not static, that it's not just for those disciples and for that period in that time, and that this is to use the term, a fluid verse. That is to say, it is just as meaningful today as was when Jesus spoke it. And that being fluid, that Jesus could say to us as a people, as a congregation, including Peter as he spoke to them, that I have some things to say to you, but you're not ready to bear them now. And Jesus acknowledging, as we are in the midst of our new beginning, our journey on our new beginning and renewal of so many things of our experiences, that there are things that we can hear, there are things that we don't know, and we can't know. There are things we're just incapable of knowing, not that they do not exist, but we are limited in our cognitive, if you will, I'll try to explain that word a little bit later on, abilities to understand. So Jesus found this as a major issue of his day. It's an issue today greater than then. There are things that can be said that people just don't hear. And I'm going to read several of the parables that Jesus teaches in order to be able to try to help people to understand it if they don't understand it at first blush, that the parable will somehow flesh it out where they can bit by bit appreciate it and then understand it, because people don't really understand the world or life or things in general. And so he stated that to his disciples. And I'd like to also at the same time, using his disciples in this ancient text, to be able to use the parables as development of our mind, which expands our mind, expands our ability to think, it expands our ability to understand. And I would like to personally, for ourselves, for this congregationally, to be able to, in this teaching, find also the truth, to move us from the idea of civil rights to righteousness. As we are beginning our new journey, that what happens when you learn new things, you live differently. You have a new journey. You have a new position. You move into a new house. That's a physical concept. But when you learn new things, when your mind develops, you start a new journey. We have an attorney sitting in here who is on a brand new journey. We have an opera star who's on a brand new journey. We have a law student. They're in new journeys. Their lives have moved from where they first started and will continue to move. And so when we learn things, which is what we want to do today in terms of teaching you by way of parables, that it will enhance and demonstrate the fact that we're on a new journey. We're not where we used to be. And then there are things that once we reach a plateau or a certain level of understanding by our minds being developed, then we can hear other things. But no point in telling people who are at the basis, kindergarten, a juvenile part of their lives about racism, about civil rights, about righteousness. No point in trying to tell them about ATLAH. They're not going to hear it. They're very juvenile, they're very kindergarten, and they have their understanding about this whole matter. It requires something other than talking about ATLAH for the time being. But we want to be able to expand our capacity as people, and thus they create a new life for ourselves. And in the process of creating a new life, what happens is that we also can generate healing. I told you just a moment ago, I prayed for everybody. If you're sick, I prayed for you this morning. I will always pray for you, no matter who you are. But a new life, a new understanding can generate healings of the body. Oftentimes our sicknesses are mental diseases, though they're not psychotic in his diagnosis, but because of our mental state, our bodies deteriorate. We get depressed, and our bodies get depressed. Our heart races, our blood pressure rises, and other kinds of things happen. So by going to a new level, or by elevating or learning, we also generate healings of the body. And then one of the perhaps more, recognizable ways would be in Alzheimer's disease, that as we begin to exercise our brain cells more, we'll tend to forget less. But if you're not learning, if you're not active, if your mind is not active, it's going to atrophy, and you're going to start forgetting. You're going to not remember things. But when you are forced into to learn new things, your mind then begins to better remember things as we go along. You know, I don't know about you, but I don't spell very well. And when I'm on my computer now, this is a new phenomenon. If I spell a word, the computer will let me know it's wrong. On my iPad, whatever it is I use. It'll let me know the word is wrong. It'll put a red line up under it. Being it's wrong, so then I'll tap it, and then it'll give me the right word. Y'all have that experience as well, right? But the other thing is that if I spell a word, if I'm trying to spell, expand, and I happen to spell expand, the computer doesn't reject it. And the reason why the computer doesn't reject it, because it's a word, but I've never heard it before. So one of the things that you can do is, just as a practice, and I'm going to get into the Holy Ghost, we can talk in tongues in just a moment, but I want to, just as a way of expanding your mind, if you happen to be doing something on the computer that doesn't reject it, get the dictionary, find out what it means. That way you're not learning something as opposed to just dismissing it as something. It brings you a new word and expands your vocabulary and lifts you up as well. In Matthew's Gospel, chapter 13, that I'm going to read from in just a moment, there are 5 parables in that chapter. You know most of them, but I'm going to read them and try to explain what they are. And also to look at the dilemma and the assignment that is given to me to raise people from the juvenile, if you will, whole idea of moving from civil rights to righteousness, this myopic view that Hamites have that is so degrading, it's so out of touch, it's so last century in light of everybody else. China is moving along like you will not believe in terms of its growth, its understanding, its social development from the Great Leap Forward. And Hamite people are still civil rights, still marching in Black lives, and it is ridiculous that one could be so last century, so 200 years ago, and there's no movement, there's no growth. And my assignment, of course, in ATLAH is to help bring us from that. Now, it isn't going to be easy because, again, people can only learn what they're capable of learning. And if they don't have the capacity to hear something while you're telling it, then it doesn't mean anything. ATLAH just rolls off their minds like water off a duck's back. But it is my job to do that. We're going to attempt to do that. I'm going to get it done. But it isn't going to be easy. It hasn't been easy these 30 years. But we want to be able to move from black distress and slavery, and the rest of the world has gone on, and we're still way back in the 18th century with slavery and Abraham Lincoln. And the rest of the world has advanced to great heights. And yet, God has given me this assignment, and he gave it to the right person, because I'm going to get it done. But we also need to be able to speak the truth and to defeat this juvenile, if you will, distress about blackness all the time. So the way that Jesus talks to the disciples and this group that he's with about the fact that there are things that happen and words are sent to them and given to them, but they don't hear it, they don't understand it. And as a result of not understanding it, they reject it. And by rejecting it, they fail to grow. And so he gives several parables about how some people do and some people don't receive what's being said. And I'm going to, in Proverbs, not Proverbs, but in the Matthew 13. I'm going to read a few verses, and what you'll hear happening here, what you'll see happening here, is that Jesus is going to try to teach people something. And they're not going to hear it. They are unable, they're intellectually, and not that they're dumb or ignorant or stubborn, that's not what I mean. But the process of what they have learned in life, that which they understand, does not allow them to see what he's talking about. And so he speaks to them in parables. And even after the parable, they still don't know what he's talking about. And if it is his disciples don't know as well, and he has to explain it to them. And I want you to see how this is a human tragedy. And those of us in leadership have to deal with the fact that people have lethargic minds. Their minds don't grow. They're very juvenile in their understanding. And Hamites in particular, in this so last 2 centuries ago about blackness and slavery, it is ridiculous. So Jesus tries to say, when a word comes that will elevate them, if they hear it, then they go home to their family members, and their family will tell them, you don't want to deal with Pastor Manning. He's this or he's that or he ain't, whatever. Let me read the parable. It'll do it on its own good. Chapter 13, verse 1. The same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the seaside, and great multitudes were gathered together unto him, so that he went into a ship and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore, and he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seed fell by the wayside, like all the people that we've fed, and they just evaporated or taught. The seeds, what we sowed, just fell by the wayside. You get the idea. And the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth. And when they heard about ATLAH, they sprung up, but because they had no deepness of earth, because they had no depth of understanding, of the juvenile understanding, and when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, family members, and thorns sprung up and choked them. But others fell into good ground, like some of you, and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Who have ears to hear, let him hear. So in other words, Jesus understands this is a problem with humanity. You can sow the seed about ATLAH all day long. It don't mean that people are going to hear it. Put that big sign out there. People are incapable. Their minds doesn't commute it. And when they try to grasp it, they get on a family member or friend that'll take it from them. And so it is. And verse 10, and the disciples came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto me them in parables? He answered and said to them, because, now listen to this very carefully. This is quite astonishing, what Jesus is saying here. He says, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. But to them it's not given, not everybody. We ain't gonna never convince everybody of ATLAH. We're just not gonna do it. It isn't gonna happen. There's some people that just ain't gonna never get it. And some of them may be sitting in here now. They're not going to get it. Some people will, but a lot of people won't, or some people will not. But whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath. Therefore speak I to them in parables, because they see, they don't, but they don't. They seeing, see not, and hearing, they hear not. And you have to put yourself, if you're not one of these persons, and even if you are, you may not realize, got to put yourself in a position. People are hearing me, but they don't really hear me. They don't see me. They don't. They see something. They don't. Now, a very basic 2 centuries ago idea about slavery and black distress, now Sharpton, they hear that. But Jesus said there are people that they hear, but they don't hear. They see, but they don't see. And he said, listen to this, it's more astonishing. He said, therefore I speak to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which saith, by hearing ye shall hear, and ye shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see and not perceive. For this people's heart is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing. They got hard hearts. And their eyes, they have just closed. Listen, at the time they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart, and should be converted, actually get saved, and I should heal them. But he said, blessed are your eyes, for they see, for your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see the things which you see and have not seen them, and to hear the things that you hear and have not heard them. And hear you therefore the parable of the sower. When anyone heareth the word of the kingdom, let's insert here without being sacrilegious. Anybody hears the word of ATLAH, when they hear the word of the king and understanding it, not, then cometh the wicked one and catcheth away that which was sown into his heart. This is he which received the seed by the wayside. But he that received the seed into the stony place is the same as he that heareth the word, and anon with joy received it. Like Pastor Bartolotta, for instance, or others that have heard the word. And yet he have not rooted himself, but dureth for a while, for then tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, and by he is offended. Now that didn't happen to Bartolotta, but it's happened to so many others. He also that received seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. So they want to go to a church where riches and easy, greasy, loosey-goosey is taught. But he that receiveth the seed in the good ground is he that heareth the word and understandeth it, which also beareth fruit, and bringeth forth some 100-fold, some 60, some 30-fold. So it's important that we understand our dilemma. Now, I have this assignment, of course, to elevate people. I have this assignment. I got the word in my mouth. I got to see, but that doesn't mean anything in terms of the capabilities of people. And not that people are stubborn. They just don't know. You know, there's a story told by preachers many, many years about a turkey egg was left among the hen house in the hen coop. And one of the hens laid on the egg, and the egg hatched. There was an eagle, rather, I'm sorry, in the turkey coop, not the hen coop. Let's get my jokes right. Anyway, so there's this turkey coop, and an eagle's egg landed there, and the turkey sat on it and hatched an eagle. But the eagle didn't know he was an eagle. Everybody around him was a turkey. Can't help but think about Flip Wilson. But the eagle's dilemma was he didn't know he was an eagle. And the turkeys couldn't tell him he was an eagle. They had no ability, and he had no ability to know. So for the first few years of his life, he walked around like a turkey. The eagle walking around the yard like a turkey, but he was an eagle. Finally, someone told the eagle, another eagle told the eagle, "What you doing hanging out with these turkeys? You're an eagle. You can fly." And so he lifted his wings and began to flutter and began to lift and lift and lift and lift and lift and left the turkeys behind. That's what got to happen to a whole lot of y'all. Y'all got to leave these turkeys. You're hanging out among turkeys, this black distress, this so 2 centuries ago slavery, this white man this. You're hanging out among turkeys. You're eagles. But you need to know who you are. But don't blame me. I'm the sower. I'm the man with the word. I'm the man with the seed. Whether or not you hear it, if you're not hearing it, you're in deep trouble. Amen. If somehow or another you're not willing to give your total existence for it, you're in deep trouble. And so 2 centuries ago. And so, there's one other teaching I did some time ago. I think it was Socrates who dictated it to his student Plato, called the Allegory of the Cave, where people lived in a cave for years. Generations were born and died in the cave. And the cave had an opening, and there's a large generation of people, a large community of people that lived in that cave, but they never went out the cave. There was an opening, and people could see, and the leaders could see, look out the cave at the entrance of the cave, and there'd be sunlight out there from time to time, then there'd be darkness. And they would see images and shadows and things going by the cave of this group of people that lived in the cave who never went outside the cave. And so finally, one of the persons got the nerve to step outside of the box, or outside of the cave, as it were. Went outside the cave and discovered that what they were talking about when they saw the images go by, such as a bus or something of that nature, went by, they said maybe it was an elephant, because they didn't know. Or when the sun rose and didn't set, or when it, or there were cloudy days, they called it all kinds of things other than sunset. They never attributed it to the sun. And they attributed maybe somebody made a big fire. So finally a man got up, enough nerve to step out from among his people, to step out from among the cave dwellers, and to go outside of the cave. And he went outside and discovered everything they talked about in the cave, everything that they named in the cave was wrong. So he came back down into the cave to tell them that they were wrong about the identity of the things that they thought were going on the outside. You know what they did to him? They killed him. They killed him. Because people are so accustomed to the limitedness of their understanding. And Hamite people will kill you. Trust me, I know. You try to take them out that cave of black distress, civil rights, and that 2 centuries ago slavery. They will kill you, or their religiosity, or their church doctrines. They will kill you when you try to tell them what it really means. And so I want to take the time to do this. I know I've done it in times gone by, but I think it's important here just to keep a continuity. You've heard these things before that I'm about to say. But I want to read Matthew's Gospel chapter 13 again, starting at verse 53, because I want to tell you why I reject this 2 centuries old black distress, slavery, civil rights, and all. Why I reject it. In Matthew's Gospel chapter 13, 53, it says, "And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished teaching these parables, he departed thence. And when he came into his own country, he taught them in their synagogue, inasmuch as that they were astonished and said, Whence hath this man this wisdom and these mighty works? Is not he the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brethren James and Joses and Simon and Judas? And his sisters, are they not all with us? Whence then have this man all these things? And they were offended in him. But Jesus said unto them, A prophet is not without honor, save among his own country and his own people. Yeah. And he did not many mighty works there because of their unbelief." So you see that these human dilemmas, these are very human dilemmas. They're very, very, basic understandings about the human mindset and its ability to comprehend. When a wise man steps among them, they criticize him. They're offended by him. They try to judge him. I know your mama. You can't imagine what struggles I have, because growing up, I slept in a bed with 3 other brothers. 4 of us slept in one bed. You may not have had to do anything like that. We grew up with one another. And now here I'm talking about ATLAH. And hey, what are you talking about? We good Baptists. You always Baptists or Methodists. What are you talking about, ATLAH? So it is very difficult, even among a man of God's own people, to reach them. And they get angry with him and cast him out. But I want to tell you why I've rejected this 2 centuries old philosophy of black distress and slavery. Number one is because I grew up a sharecropper. Now, a sharecropper, you've heard it, but you've never done it. You have no idea what it is. Yeah. A sharecropper is just one step removed from slavery. You still work the fields for Mr. Charlie. You still work the plantation. You still did all the work, except that when the crops were sold, the boss man or the plantation owner would take a portion and he would give you a share. It was called sharecropping. That's what it was. And that's what my father did. That's what my uncles did. That's what everybody I knew did. They were sharecroppers. And occasionally we could farm ourselves out as independent contractors and pick cotton for somebody else. Well, if you pick 100 pounds of cotton, they'd give you $3 for it. Can you imagine how much cotton it takes to weigh 100 pounds and all you get is $3 for a day's work? But we were glad to get that $3. So I'm a sharecropper. Most of you have never gone anywhere near such an experience. I grew up, that's all I knew until I was 18 years old. I grew up on the doorstep of slavery. I want to tell you why I reject this 200-year-old antiquated, if you will, racism and civil rights and black distress. I grew up in segregation. I graduated from a segregated high school. No white folk in the school I went to. When I graduated and I marched the aisle, it was all black. But I loved it. I grew up Jim Crow. I grew up with a quarter. You see them in pictures now. If you happen to get a movie, Miss Jane Pittman, you'll see a white water fountain. I touched one. I wasn't able to go into the toilets. Many of you, and many of these other pontificators, you've never been anywhere near one. I drank from a colored water fountain. I did it if I was going to drink any water while I was in the town area. I grew up Jim Crow. I understand that process quite well. And having gone through that, I reject what I see now as a solution, as the answer. But I got more. I reject the idea that Japheth people are all evil and are haters. I reject that. It isn't true. It isn't true. I grew up around Japheth people as sharecropping with them or living with them. But also I was influenced after I finally left sharecropping and came to New York. I purchased a book. I don't even know if I can say the name of it now, by Dick Gregory. It had the N-word. That was the name of the book, the N-word. I came home. I was in college at the time. I came home and I think I wanted to take a bath. I thought it was hot. And I got in the bathtub, but I took the book with me. Now, I don't want to expose myself to the bathtub idea, but that's what happened. And I started reading the book. The water was hot, it got cold and colder, and I stayed in the bathtub. I didn't put that, I was so engrossed in Dick Gregory's, if you will, type of racism that he was spouting at the time. And what he was promoting, being born in St. Louis and having that experience as a comedian and making all that money, and pretty much why he quit the comedian business. I was engrossed by what I heard. It began to turn my heart. From all the years I grew up as a sharecropper, as my father's son, Dick Gregory began to influence me with blackness and evil. But just not just that. I was also influenced, still in college. I purchased a book called The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William L. Scheer, a Jewish writer, 1,300 pages. I came home, and I think I lay across the bed and began to read. And I didn't read the whole 1,300 pages that day, but I didn't stop until I read that, because I wanted to know about the inner workings of Hitler, Joseph Mengele. I wanted to know about Roosevelt. and the war, the Luftwaffe, the Panzer divisions, and all of what was going on in World War II. My father had fought in that war. But I was interested in what was then, in my mindset, one of the most atrocious racist times in our history of racism against Jews, and the robbery of them, and the burning of them in ovens, and cutting their skin and making lampshades, and taking their property and raping their women and dousing them. I'd heard little bits apart about that in high school, but that book laid it out completely. You ought to read it if you've never read it. So I looked at that, and I looked at what I went through in sharecropping. I'll take sharecropping any time of the day than what the Jews went through in Germany. In terms of, if you're going to talk about racism, if you're going to talk about racist people, and the Jews were a race at that time, or a religion. But I was also influenced by the French philosopher René Descartes, who, I heard it, it stuck with me. He made this very basic statement, I think is basic in terms of all kinds of understanding. He says, I think, therefore I am. And I'm a critical thinker. Even in those days, I critique. I'm a critical thinker. So the very fact, I caught that immediately. I knew exactly what he was saying. If I can think, if I can process information, if I can process reality and understand it, then I exist. Not at the mercy of somebody else. I'm processing this information. I exist on my own, not because somebody allows me to exist or tells me to exist. I think, therefore I am. One of the greatest statements, I think, in all of philosophy, that French philosopher René Descartes. You might want to read him as well. But for those reasons, I reject. I think. I'm a critical thinker. I reject this 200-year-old black distress about slavery. I reject it out of hand. And I think the other thing is, and you know about this as well, in terms, I've lived a criminal life. I've been on both sides of the jailhouse, the prison. I've lived a criminal life. And as a typical black man, I've lived that also. I was twice convicted. I was twice convicted by a jury. I took all my stuff to bat. That's what they say in the jailhouse. Go to bat. You don't complete, you don't confess, you don't plead. Take it to court. Take it. I was convicted twice by a jury. First jury went out, they were back in 20 minutes. Guilty as charged. But you know, you have to understand something. I worked on a chain gang. You don't know what that is. You've seen it on television. But even the television people cannot really give you the true feel and sense of it. Because there's certain things in the movie industry that they can't do. They can't violate. They can't. And so they tiptoe up to it about chain gang experiences, but they don't really tell you. And nobody can tell you what it's like to be on a chain gang. Nobody can tell you what it's like to have a striped suit on and be down in a ditch or whatever it is that you're doing when a man's standing over you with a horse. And that's the morning rising and the evening setting of your day. Nobody can tell you about that. You got to experience that for yourself. The poets can write about it, people can make movies, but you have to see, you got to do that one for yourself. I've done that. I've been there. And having done that, having people stood over me with a shotgun, gone through that process, and God delivered me, I reject racism. I reject this blackness. I reject it. I reject it out of hand. Because I think. And anybody else who's gone through that will also reject it. Even though I worked on the chain gang, it did not depress me. It did not cause me to self-destruct. My mind stayed solid and focused. I'm a winner right now. James David Manning is a winner. I'm a survivor. I'm not a loser. That did not depress me to the point where I did not have the energy or the desire to get up and do anything anymore. I'm a winner. I'm a winner. I'm no loser. I reject that loser idea of racism, of civil rights, of that 200-year-old slavery. I reject that loser. Those are losers. I'm a winner. And I will not hang out with these turkeys. So it's important. No man can hold me down. And if you ever rise up and be a man, no one will hold you down. You know, when I was in prison, I rejected being a Muslim too, you know. This was back in the 70s. I told you Louis Farrakhan came to Rayford. He did, riding in a blue Mercedes with curtains. I rejected it. Not only did I reject it, I told the Muslim imam, I'm going to talk to you. And we had a debate. All the prison gathered around in the school, and I debated the imam who was on speaking basis with Louis Farrakhan. I rejected Islam. I rejected the nation of Israel, not Israel, but of Islam, of black Muslims. I rejected that because there was no way I was going to ever say that white people are devils. That's not true. And that's all they taught. That the white man's the devil. And he was created in some sort of test tube. What kind of foolishness is that? That Jakub created the white man in a test tube. All of a sudden the white man got more power, got more sense than he got, and put him in slavery. What kind of nonsense? I ain't going for that okie doke. I've done a lot of things, but I ain't going for it. I rejected it. And by rejecting it, I stood my ground. As a Christian, you think you some sort of wimp. Oh, you and your white Jesus. You white. Look at your blonde hair and blue. They're in prison, right? Talking to me. Your Jesus got blonde hair and blue eye. You fall in the blonde hair and they're with Muslims, right? I stood my ground. And every prison I went through, and I went through several of them, I debated the imam. I took them on. And I was not intimidated by them marching around. In fact, I took their followers at one point up in Comstock. So it's important for you to understand, if I rejected Islam in prison, you know I'm going to reject Obama in this church. You know I ain't going for that. You know I ain't going for Barack Hussein Obama. I mean, it's just common sense. You don't know that about me. You don't know me. You don't know that I rejected Farrakhan. I rejected Islam. I rejected Malcolm X. I rejected that when I was in chains. Yeah. And now that I got my freedom and I'm a winner and I'm doing things, I'm sure going to reject. You can't offer me Obama. What's wrong with you? He ain't man enough for me. No, he's not. But you don't know that. Cognitively, it's impossible for you to conceive of a man who thinks like that because you've never had such thoughts. And so some seeds fall on good ground and some fall on stony ground. Yeah. But I rejected it. You know, I tell you what, I wrote a poem and you might want to hear this poem a little bit differently, Precious LaFleur. In my days on the chain gang, I came home. I came to my prison cell that night. I wrote this poem, and it goes something like this: I've known days when I reached my peak, and gone some above, fell way down to my deepest depth. Yea, though I retain the capacity to love. When all my troubles beset me, their perils and thorns no end. I guess I've known worse days in the chain gang, but I really can't remember when. I wrote that, and you can hear the pain in that. You can hear the clarity of that. But no matter what happened to me, I never lost the ability to love and love my brother. No matter how low I sank, I still retained that capacity. And I still understood. I wrote that simply out of an experience that perhaps some of you will never enter into. So don't expect me to follow the, if you will, this 200-year-old black distress over slavery. I'm not going down that road. I mean, I've succeeded. Now I'm gonna get back to Jesus in just a moment, but I think it's important that I say this. It's important. I have succeeded at being black. They say you can't because you're black. But I had a double whammy. I'm an ex-convict. You don't get jobs as an ex-convict. Nobody hires you. They look at your record, you tell them you're an ex-convict, nobody wants to bother with you. That's it. But I succeeded as a black man, which they say you can't succeed as, and I'm a winner. But not just that I have that against me, as an ex-convict, and I never tried to hide it. I don't hide it now. I never lied to an employer and told him, if I went to an employer, I told him I've been in prison. That's right. And so when people talk to me about, I can't make it, the man is hard on me, I have to figure out, well, wait a minute now, I made it. Why can't you? It's the mind. It's the difference of the mind. It's the difference of the intellectual strength. It's the difference of the heart. It's the difference of understanding the world. You don't understand the world. That's why you don't make it.
Yeah, preach.
And can't make it. But you know, I have truly overcome. You know, they sang that song, "We shall overcome." And I don't want to mock all the people that marched and died and whatever it is that did this. I don't want to, but they sang that song. We used to sing it every Martin Luther King Jr. Day at the Convent Avenue Baptist Church at the Baptist Minister Conference. We shall overcome someday. Well, I've already overcome. I've already done that. Y'all can keep on singing about doing that. I've done it. I've overcome this world. I've overcome being an ex-con. I've overcome being a black man. I've overcome being a sharecropper. I've overcome all of that. You can, if you back there, if you ain't overcome yet, keep on singing, brother. But no, I've overcome. And I preached my first sermons in prison. That's right. That's why I tools sharpened my skills of preaching. Had a captive audience. And men actually came to hear me preach. You know, my prison guard, two of them, one in particular in Rayford, a white man, a Japheth man, right? I led to Jesus as a prisoner. He later came and preached in his pulpit. Came all the way from Florida to see, is it really true? A white man. You think I'm going to hate white people? A white man, a prisoner. I'm a prisoner. He's a free man. He's my prison guard. He's so amazed by me. He gave his life to Jesus and started preaching himself. Now, I'm not going for Al Sharpton. No, I'm not. You done lost your mind. And everybody who does is in the darkness of that cave. And most will never get out because you don't have the intellectual juice to get out. But some will. And that's who I want to reach today. But no, You know, I traveled to South Africa talking about racism. That was in Africa where I met the wonderful Elizabeth Searle. You know that. We're talking about racism. When apartheid was still apartheid and Nelson Mandela was still in jail, I went to apartheid to study racism in the Church of Social Change in South Africa. Yes, I did. I met with the Secretary of State of the clerk while I was in South Africa. Went into his big grand office. I did. And I was selected among the group to question him about the apartheid regime. I did that to a white South African, Johannesburg. If you're an Afrikaner, don't you talk to me about no racism. You talk to me about that. When I presented the apartheid tradition to him and how it has stood, and asking him, and he gave me an answer with respect in South Africa. Elizabeth here is a witness. Later on, I was selected to be the house guest of the then Nobel Peace Prize winner, Bishop Desmond Tutu. I was his house guest for a while. Why don't you talk to me about it? It's antiquated. This 200-year-old, we black, white man against we black, God got first black president, Obama, first black president. I'm not there. And you're only there because you have a limited capacity of brain use. Your mind is stuck some 200 years ago. You may never be sharecropped, but your mind is enslaved. Your mind is in chains. You may have never been on the chain gang, but your mind is in a chain. And I swear before God, I've never seen anything like black people. You're enslaved in the mind. Your mind is in a chain. Apartheid is your lot because you just don't have, and many times it isn't because you're stubborn or mean-spirited. I don't mean to indicate that. It is simply because you don't have the intellectual capacity to move from where you are to where the rest of the world has moved to. You're incapable of doing it. I mean, you're going to die and end up in your grave. Still talking that old black talk and going nowhere with it. You know, but since then I've been able to establish schools. Graduate people going off to college. That's right. I'm no loser. You know, I'm no loser. I fed Lily over 1 million meals. You may not believe that. I say that. I see some people's eyes jump up and down. No, I fed people. I went down to where Mother Cooper lives in Martin Luther King Jr. house, took a truckload of hot dogs and hamburgers down there, and several burned them, set them all out, put coals in there, set them afire, told the whole project, come on down here and eat. And I fed everybody, and there was food left over. That's what I did. Me and Jesus and this church. You don't know anything about that, about feeding the hungry. And I did it not just did it in the Manhattanville houses. I did it in other places. And the education system and the safe environment that we've established here. I held a meeting in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The battlefield of battlefields. I actually went down, had the audacity to go down there and preach peace and reconciliation. You believe that? You believe that? Dr. King didn't go to Gettysburg. Obama ain't never been there calling for reconciliation. But I did. Not once, but twice. So I think it's important that we understand the difficulties. That a prophet is not honored even among his own people. I've lived in Harlem for 40 years. Every preacher I know lives someplace else if he has a church in Harlem, because he don't want to live around y'all. He's probably right, because y'all are tough. Y'all are difficult. So he gets him a house, gets some money, he's gone. Obama got an $8 million house up in Martha's. That one got me. I just never saw that in that boy. I never thought he was that elite. You know how you got to think about yourself to move to Martha's Vineyard. I mean, if you move to Beverly Hills, okay, movie actors live out. People got a lot of money. Don't necessarily have a lot of culture, Britney Spears at Beverly Hills, that's understandable. O.J. Simpson, Brentwood. Martha's Vineyard is a whole nother can of worms. To move up there, you got to be thinking, to walk around people like that, you got to think you sure enough got it going on. That boy up there at Martha's Vineyard, an $8 million crib. They told me everything inside the house is white. I live in Harlem. I live in Harlem. I live among the people. I wake up among the people. I pray for the people. If anybody should be a racist, well, I grew up in North Carolina. I ought to be the biggest one going. But I'd have to resort back to just days out of coming out of my mother's womb in terms of my intellectual understanding, my sense as a man. I'm not a man because of the size of my muscles or anything else. So I'm a man because my mind has matured. You can have a big body and still be a vegetable. There's no way I could be these civil rights, 200-year slavery, distressed black people. My mind won't do that. My mind would leave me if I tried to go back and live like that again. I see people do it every day. And by the way, not just people of a lowly estate, street people, people who get PhD degrees from these Ivy League universities, because their minds haven't elevated. Oh, you can learn how to do philosophy, I suppose. There's Cornel West, maybe, or Michael Eric Dyson, or Eddie Glaude, or Van Jones. You can learn those things, but you can't learn how to grow as a man. You can learn how to spew hate, but how to spew unconditional, if you will, growth and understanding, unlimited in your abilities. Doesn't come easy, and very few people attain it. So I thought I would say that. I want to read again from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 13. I want to go back to verse 24. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like this, and likened to a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. Now, I want to read this because I want to talk to you about what the LGBTQ community has done and what the sellout politicians have done to this community. in terms of just literally destroying the people. This morning, accidentally, I read a news article about another church being sold here on 141st Street. Say on 141st and Convent, you know that Episcopal church up there, Minister Williams, right near you, it's on the market, and they're being sold and bulldozed over. What is wrong? These people have come up here and taken what you did have. You did have enough sense to go to church. You did have enough sense to have mom and pop stores. You did have enough sense to make sure your son married a woman, not a man. You did have enough. Now you don't have that no damn more. The thief, the enemy. But you don't see him that way. But when the blades had sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. The servants of the household came and said unto him, Sir, didst thou not sow good seed in the field? From whence then have its tares? And he said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Will thou then go, that we would go and gather them? I said, Nay, lest you gather the tares. You root up also the wheat. Let us both grow together until the harvest, and then the time, and the reapers will gather them together, and the first the tares, and then bind them, and then the wheat, and barn them in the barn. That's how the kingdom of heaven is. I don't mean to be putting anybody down. You stand up for just a second. I don't mean to be. This message is not about a message of you can't do, but I need to make you understand how close you are to the edge, and that it is not simply because of you, where you were born, or me. Jesus teaches this. He's not healing people. He's saying that the human experience, the human dilemma is more than just something, to just wink at. People don't advance because they're intellectually unable. They're incapable of growth. Their mental capacity, they can't do it. They're not stubborn. They don't understand. They don't understand that the world has moved on from slavery. They don't understand. It isn't that mean or stubborn, and I'm not here to put anybody down. But I'm trying to say what Jesus said. I'm not going outside of what Jesus said. You know my background. But tares will grow up among us. I had a man lie to me. And he had been lying to me. He's actually on payroll in this church. And he had been lying. He's just a liar. That's all he was. So I dismissed him a time or two. He came back, cried and begged for an opportunity to come back. I let him come back in. I'm a merciful man. And he kept lying and stealing and doing everything he could possibly do to gain from first we hired a contractor. He tried to get a kickback. If I paid a man to do some work, he get for $300, he get a $50 kickback. Trying to sex up every woman in the church. And I knew that. I could have dismissed him. I said, well, let me just keep working with him. And, finally the lies got to the point where I couldn't go any further. But when I pulled him up, the tear, it pulled up some other stuff as well. You see what I'm saying? Amen. So you got to be wise doing this job, because there are tares in here now. And they don't change. They don't change. So Jesus said, well, I'm going to send my angels and I'll gather them. But it can be very dangerous. It can be very dangerous, the things that can be planted. You heard me. I wanted to say that. I need to say that. It can be very, very dangerous for the pastor. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in the field, which indeed is the least of all seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest among the herbs, and becometh a tree, so that the birds of the air. I'm looking at another property for us to buy, and we're going to buy it. But it ain't that church in Williamson. I don't want that thing, that ugly thing. But Dr. Hartfield, you got to hear me. You know, we have got to not retreat at the education process. We got to get on the offensive. And we have got to move forward with the opportunity of college educations. Because I'll tell you something. In the next 5 to 6 years, if Jesus doesn't come back, first of all, in a couple of days, everybody's going to have to get a vaccination shot, whether you want one or not. You're going to have to get one. You can say your religion, Jesus, anybody. They ain't going to let you go in the store. They ain't going to let you get on a bus. And then the other thing is, the same period of time, every church is going to have to perform a same-sex marriage. They will take away your church, if you will, tax exemption and everything else if you speak out against same-sex marriage. It's coming. You know it is. It's coming. It's just a matter of time. And so, Dr. Hartfield, we got to go forward. Elder LaFleur, we got to go forward. So we got to purchase another building, because this building, I mean, we're going to keep, as you know, we're still fighting in court over this property, but that's another story. But we have got to think over, we got to think 5 years, 10-year increments. We can't just think about now. We got to think about 5 years from now. We got to start planning. And the other thing is that we have to understand is that in our school system, that it is becoming increasingly the outside relatives of the students are treacherous. And we're going to have to be able to find a way to first teach the message of this social distress of 200 years of slavery, so that the students we do get will not go out and be among family members that are just plain old ignoramus, just full of hate, full of racism. That's all they talk about. And then as wonderful and beautiful as this house is, as wonderful as it, and even some of them used to be in here till Obama came along. I watched Sabbath get that degree. That's something. She came here with nothing. And I got all them children, got a degree, her daughter's in New York University, and that's just the beginning. This is not a bad place. This is a wonderful place to be. No family member should, outside this church, no matter what they think about me, should ever criticize the school or should ever try to poison the mind of a young girl or a young boy who's in the school. The hell with you. You devil you. You devil you. You're harming that child who has an opportunity of a great education to go to a school where there's never been a fist fight in 25 years, to go to a school where a weapon has never been brought in 25 years, to go to a school where no drugs are used or ever found in 25 years, and you trying to take them out? What the hell is wrong with you? You devil you. And yet, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Dr. Hartfield, y'all take your seats. So, you know, we were teaching the other day about the fact that we're out to stand here and teach quantum physics, or astrophysics for that matter, or any kind of physics. You'd go to sleep. But it isn't that quantum physics or astrophysics is not an interesting subject. It's very interesting if for those people who get into that. A lot of people think that's the best way to find God, through numbers. I have a lower understanding of that. I do. But if your mind is not prepared to receive that, if your mind is not prepared to receive that, you just don't understand it. And you'd rather talk in tongues and dance, get the organ, the dance and music, and you say, we had a good time in church. Because you don't understand. And if you don't have the cognitive capacity, that is to say the brain cell expansion glue, when something you hear sticks, you don't have the capacity to do that. And again, I'm not putting anybody down, and it doesn't mean that somebody's stubborn or that they're mean people. It's just they don't have it. If you don't have it, you don't have it. So Jesus tried to reach them by going around the barn with telling parables. See if that would do it. And these elevated principles that we're speaking about men being leaders in their homes, leaders in the church, or the power of the Sabbath. There is no way that if anybody understood the power of the Sabbath, forget about the law, whether Paul says we're no longer in the law, we're in the grace and whatever. Forget about this. But everybody knows that the Sabbath is a part of creation. It's the seventh day, crying out loud. And anybody who understands that yet goes to church on Sunday, there's something wrong with you. You can't understand the power of the Sabbath. You can't know what it is and then don't do it. You can't know. You're just plain out ignorant. Because if you know what it is, there's no way you're not going to keep it. It's not just the law. It's God's day. And so you can talk to these church people till you're blue in your face. They're not going for it. And I think that the other thing is that cursing the Shemite and the Japheth cultural and social development, is, for instance, I've said for many years that all the years that Hamites, black people were in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, never built a seaworthy vessel. Someone responded to my statements about critical race theory, said, well, the white man came over with guns and all they had was spears. My point, indeed. A more advanced society with guns and boots and uniforms to a society with nothing but spears and barefoot. You're going to lose. You're going to lose. That's my point. That's what I'm trying to say. You're not developed. I'm not saying anything that's not true. You're saying it as well. Don't make excuses. Learn how to develop socially, economically, the way the white man is developed, the way the Jew is developed, and stop bitching and moaning about what he is doing. You had Harlem, for crying out loud, and you didn't develop that. Or you got an opportunity to develop it now, and you won't. So Jesus said one other thing, though, because people have cold hearts. They don't hear. And there is they want to teach critical race theory, and I'm turning a bit of a corner here. And all these crazy people are talking about, yeah, we need critical race theory. Wait a minute. Well, what is critical race theory? Well, a re-examination, a revisiting of the true history of black folk in America and slavery. Really? Really? Yeah, at this late stage in this 21st century, we need to go back and revisit and tell children who are so remote from that experience. They're even remote from sharecropping, from the black water fountain to sit in. They're so remote from that, they don't even know what to do. But you want to teach them about? Yeah, they need to know it. Why? Well, can't really answer that, but white man hid it for them. That's why they need to know. But can I share something with y'all? Hamites, before critical race theory and before civil rights, Booker T. Washington was one of my favorites, right? Booker T. Washington founded Tuskegee Institute in the 19th century. Maybe 30, 40 years after the Emancipation Proclamation? There was no critical race theory. He just said, I'm going to teach you how to be a scientist, a chemist, and also how to be a farmer at the same time. And started a mega school in Tuskegee Institute. And, but Marcus Garvey, who was a contemporary of Booker T. Washington to some degree, a lot younger, but started the Negro Improvement Association here in New York City and had tens of thousands of followers and businesses all over New York City and Brooklyn. No critical race theory. No civil rights. This is before civil rights. We're talking about in the 20s and the 30s. No civil rights, no marching, no Dr. King, no boycott, no... Black folk did all this without critical race theory. I'm trying to figure out, are you trying to, if we're going to retrogress, let's go back to what we used to be. Can somebody explain to me why they want to do that? Other than try to sell books, look smart, get on television, hoodwink, ignorant, basic, if you will, 200-year-old black distressed people. All they want to do is talk about black and hate white folk. Because it ain't going, we had a better life, trust me. I asked Mother Shekinah and her ex-boss at Howard University. Howard University got started 2 years after slavery, 1867. That's right. Graduating doctors. Thurgood Marshall. This is before Dr. King. This is before civil rights. Arguing before the Supreme Court. Why do you want critical racism when we were doing so much better even before we had civil rights? Can you understand what I have to go through when I wake up and I see he come? Lord have mercy. You know, Jesus emphatically and dramatically declares that people just don't have the ability to understand. It's a human fallacy. It's a dilemma. And racism and, you know, this 200 years of distress, they understand that. I'm finished with you in terms of things I wanted to be able to say today, and I pray that you understand. I'm not here to put you down. That's not what I'm here. Let me try to put it another way. I'm going to do everything in my power, no matter how much you resist me, no matter how much you scheme against me, no matter, and I'm not, by the way, I'm just talking to this audience here, everybody need to know, no matter how many people throw stones at me, I'm not going to quit trying to help you. Because you need to come out the cave. I can tell you that. So I'm not here to put you down. But I think it's obvious in Jesus, not with you, not with this audience, not in this modern day, 21st century, but with Jesus in the first century, that people just didn't understand the realities of reality. Amen. And even with his teaching ability, and that Jesus was no small teacher, you know he knew how to teach, but even Jesus couldn't reach these people. And then when he finally went back home to his own people, they heard about what he was doing. Who do you think you are? We know you. And they were offended. And because they were offended, he wasn't able to do very many miracles. Among his own family members, they had to die in sickness because of the unbelief. His own family people didn't believe in him. This is just a phenomenon. And it's a great example. And Jesus wanted to talk today. I can tell you this. I'm never going to quit. I'm never going to quit. I'm asking you to come along with me. But I'm not going to give up on ATLAH. I'm not. It's just too beautiful. Well, I don't want to run around talking about the white man. You know, and we have to understand as well, because somebody white treated you bad, an analysis would be this: how many black people have treated you bad? Right? Compared to how many people from time to time will treat you bad. Not everybody has a good day. I remember, this is the absolute truth. I remember one day in Rayford Prison, I was sitting at the desk because I was teaching Mr. Stauffer's class. He came in that morning and sat there and said, "James?" I said, "Yes." He says, "I want to apologize for yesterday." Ooh. You apologizing to me? He said, "Yes." He says, "I was a little bit testy yesterday, and I know that I was. I wasn't feeling well, and I had a lot of things going on, and I was a little bit curt with you." You got to be out your mind. I'm a convict. I'm in prison, man. You're my prison guard. You apologizing to me for not being nice to me? I didn't pay it any attention. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect him to be nice to me. I'm a criminal. But he apologized. And there are times when white folk will do things. Maybe a teacher will say something to you, and not that they don't like you, you know, or maybe they'll say something to you to jar you, to help you, to see the point, because you don't really maybe they watch you for a while and they find you are so stuck in your juvenile understanding, you won't develop. And they may get frustrated, not that they hate you, just frustrated that you're so undeveloped. Someone said to me, "Pastor, man, I don't know how you have patience to deal with these folk. I don't know how you do this, and been doing it for years. How you do it, I don't know." But a white person may say something on your job or in the school or someplace else because they're just watching you consistently refusing to be developed, to move forward, or clinging on to some 200-year-old slavery distress, and you're not ready to move forward, and you're living in poverty and you won't do right. So beyond that, it is simply a matter of whether we're going to have our minds developed, whether we're going to actually grow and begin to experience new vistas. Because when the mind expands and we learn new things, we have a new life. We have a new life. We have a new experience. You know, the fact that you are the age that you are, you can you can invigorate the juices to flow into your bodies to reinvigorate your health. Simply by being excited about the new life and the new that you're living and the new experiences that you're having. Why stay stuck in a defeatism, if you will, ideology of doctrines of churches? That's another fallacy, if you will. We Baptists are born a Baptist, gonna die a Baptist. No, you're born a fool, you're gonna die that too. No, that Jesus said there's some things, y'all stand up. Jesus said there are some things I want to say to you, but because of your denominational strength, because of where you are now, you can't hear them. And this was to Peter, by the way. And if you keep dwelling on, I'm Baptist, I'm Catholic, I'm Southern Baptist, I'm Methodist, you keep dwelling on that, I'm black, I'm a woman, I'm a tranny, I'm a this, a that, or the other. You keep dwelling on that. You have to know the platforms. I've done an analysis of the media of CNN and Fox News in competition. It's very difficult to watch Fox because they lie. They actually lie. They've actually picked up the mantle of Donald Trump. No, Trump just lies. He just lies. That boy is lying. You don't care nothing about that. He lying. You look at you, well, I lied, so what? And Fox has picked that up now. And it's difficult to tune them in. But CNN is vigorously trying to turn the world genderless. It is incredible what they're doing to the minds of people. And then they got all these pensioner's Negroes coming on there, diluting the masses of people with their propaganda, in addition to the fact that they're out to take Trump down. No doubt, they don't lie as much, but they got a purpose. They want to take Trump down, but they also want to take down the idea that somebody's birth gender is important. They are vicious. They are vicious, that television. They are vicious. And probably one of the reasons why they got rid of Chris Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo, because those are two homeboys that like women. I mean, they're like on the right way. That Andrew Cuomo is off the chain. That boy like women. But they don't want that. They don't want that. And because the man offered his brother some help, they fired him. Come on. But I'm not going to stop fighting this fight. He said, Pastor, why you keep saying that? Because it's true. I have to tell you that I kind of enjoy it to some degree. I was made for this. I was born for this one. I tell you that right now. I don't know anybody who could do this better than me. Yeah, I ain't boasting, I ain't bragging anything. Trust me, you know the shipwrecks I've had, you know the rocks that have been thrown at me, you know the stuff I've gone through, and maybe going through something next week like I ain't never heard of it. You know what? But I wouldn't change none of it. I would not one single thing. And this may not be believed, but I love you. I see you. I see you are in trouble. You don't have to live like that. I was a sharecropper. I picked cotton for $3 for 100 pounds. I worked on the chain gang, and yet I am. And I see you. I see the way you're living, the houses you go to, the way men treat women, and the way women treat truth. I want to help you. I do. I want to help you. I could ride off and live somewhere like Martha's Vineyard. I want to help you. I want to, these people who come to this church and work here, I want to see their families doing well, eating well. That's genuine. Can't nobody take that from me. That's in my heart. You can throw me in the darkest dungeon, but can't nobody take the love I have for you out of my heart. You can't do it. And I'm not gonna let you get swallowed up by the LGBT and take away your joy. You as a woman, you need to have a man get knocked up and carry big the way Precious do. You need to get knocked up. Somebody need to knock you up. Now, you usually get knocked up when you're not married. But I won't frown on you. I'd rather say you get knocked up by a man you're not married to than lay down with a woman. I will bring you and the knocked up baby to the altar and pour oil and get up and down and dance like Bojangles rather than see you lay down with a woman. You need to have that experience. Don't throw that experience away. And as a man, don't throw experience away. You got these men on television, don't see it anywhere, kissing one another. Don't throw the experience of kissing that girl for the first time. Don't throw that away. These people are telling you to do it. I'm telling you. Don't let them pervert your minds. Don't let them do it. And I'm not going to quit fighting. And they have raised their bowls against, you see them. And don't you help them fight me. Now, come on now. Come on, don't you help them fight me. You see anybody talking about me, you be sitting down at the Thanksgiving dinner table. Somebody start talking, well, I think Pastor Manning did. You get up and walk out. I ain't got coffee to get home. I'm going to pray the angels will come with a chariot of fire and take me home. But I ain't sitting at no table where you're talking about my pastor. You ain't, no, sir. That man done too much. God knows I probably wouldn't be alive were it not for him. My mama might have aborted me were it not for him. You ain't going to talk about him. No, you can talk about somebody else. No. So I'm not going to, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read Psalm 5. Y'all standing? All right, here we go. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Hearken to the voice of my cry, my King and my God. For unto thee will I pray. My voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord, in the morning when I rise. Will I direct my prayer unto thee and will look up. For thou art not a God that have pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. The Lord will abhor the bloody and deceitful man. But as me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy, and in the fear will I worship towards thy holy temple. Lead me, O Lord, in thy righteousness. Because of mine enemies, make thy way straight before my face. For there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wickedness. Their throat is an open sepulchre. They flatter with their tongue. Destroy them, O God. Let them fall by their own counsel. Cast them out in the multitude of their transgressions, for they have rebelled against thee. But let all those that put their trust in thee rejoice, and let them ever shout for joy, because thou defendest them. And let them also that love thy name be joyful in thee. For thou, Lord, will bless the righteous with favor, and wilt thou compass him as with a shield. I don't know if you brought your oil. If you did, I just want you to take it in your hand. This house is nearly full in here this morning, and we're probably going to have to cut back. You're going to hear from Elder LaFleur. We're going to have to rearrange the worship. That Omicron virus is out there. The death tolls are skyrocketing again, hospitalizations as well. And while I love seeing all y'all here, I need you to understand that we're going to have to parse everything out. And I want to say that there will be no more parties, birthday parties, or any other sorts of gatherings And I would caution those of you who gather after worship downstairs. I know it's a great time to have fellowship. I understand that. It's a comfortable place and you can have food. But I'm going to ask that we suspend that for a while. Because sometimes other people go out and be around people that you don't know. And I'm trying to protect you. We're going to take other measures as well to protect this house. This thing looks like it's going to be around for a little while. And what I want to do is I can't tell you what to do with the oil. I just want to say I'm going to anoint it. I'm going to pray over it. If I tell you what to do with it, they'll take me down off of Facebook as giving out false medical information. You know how they do that. But if you hold that oil in your right hand, I want to pray. Heavenly Father, we love you so very much. And we thank you for your anointing oil. We thank you for your consecration and sanctification oil and practices. We thank you for your ashes and your sacrifice and your sackcloth. I pray the prayer of healing and divine protection over all of those who are touched by your word and by your anointing oil, that they may dwell safely from this virus. And I pray for families that have lost loved ones. Family out in Michigan that lost their loved ones in that school shooting and others. And people are dying right now. Lord, have mercy on us. Lord, have mercy on us. And in your name, Jesus, we pray that this oil be so anointed. Hallelujah and amen. Now, you may take your seats. Our tithing and offering is in order. You can tithe your way out of poverty. You can do that. I would say to all of you that, especially if you have any, sicknesses in your body that's been persistent, you might want to try to stay away from people as much as you can. It seems that this variant is on the rise again. And usually when people catch the virus, if they have a complication of some other disease, that's usually when it gets really bad. So I would suggest to you that you would try to stay home and comfortable as much as you possibly can and away from others. And then stay away from people who go around others. Pray for our school. I don't know whether or not the city of New York is going to call a school lockdown. They probably don't want to do that again politically. I don't think Eric Adams is going to do it. He might. But I might do it independent of them. Because we just don't have absolute certainty of where all our students go. And I have to tell you, I can't afford to lose one of our teachers because some parent wanted to go gallivanting around with other people. I can't afford to lose y'all like that. I'm sorry. I mean, I'd rather shut the school down than lose a teacher based on the fact that, well, I want to be with my family. I can't do that. These teachers, many of them got a little age on them. Amen. And I don't want them exposed. And I think it's my job as a pastor to say that. So you'll be better informed by Monday as to how we're going to proceed, whether we're going to let the school stay open or whether we're going to do remote learning again. But thank you for your tithes and your offerings. You've been very generous. And I just thank you for doing it. Praise Almighty God.